Imagine someone you love is dying, and a corporate doctor offers a flawless injection that cures every disease forever. But the horrifying catch is that a tech billionaire now legally owns their cells, and their heart requires a monthly Wi-Fi update just to keep beating. We spent decades nervously searching for a physical barcode or an external mark, entirely missing the ultimate trap. The real mark of control isn't a weapon used against you. It is a patented medical miracle you will literally beg to receive. Today, we expose the Impure Code and why protecting your fragile mortal clay is the only way to survive the transhumanist empire. Imagine someone you love is terribly sick and a doctor offers a miracle cure that promises a life entirely free of pain. It's a deal that sounds incredibly amazing, but the devastating cost of that miracle is quietly hidden in the fine print. We have spent decades nervously looking for an external mark, something physically stamped on our skin, completely missing the real threat. The ultimate trap of our generation isn't going to be violently forced upon you at gunpoint in a dark alley. Instead, it is going to be handed to you on a pristine silver medical platter, accompanied by thunderous global applause. They figured out that the easiest way to conquer a human being is to promise them absolute safety from their deepest fears. Let's think about a massive, beautiful Trojan horse rolling proudly right through the front gates of our modern hospitals. The global elite fully understand that our most primal, universal human vulnerability is the sheer terror of sickness and bodily decay. If they flat out demanded total ownership of your biology, you would obviously fight back with every single ounce of your strength. So they brilliantly disguise their ultimate control agenda as the greatest, most compassionate medical breakthrough in the history of mankind. They offer radical synthetic enhancements as a foolproof, miraculous shield against every terrifying illness imaginable to man. You don't just blindly accept this Trojan horse, you literally cheer and cry tears of joy as it enters your bloodstream. It is exactly like being offered the shiny keys to a stunning multi-million-dollar luxury mansion completely for free. You enthusiastically sign the massive 100-page contract without ever bothering to read the tiny, terrifying fine print at the very bottom. Once you move in, you quickly realize you cannot lock the doors, rearrange the furniture, or even turn off the lights. The massive corporation still legally owns the house, and they can easily evict you the second you violate their arbitrary rules. That is the exact deceptive nature of handing over your organic sovereignty in exchange for a promised biological disease-free upgrade. You get to live in a perfectly healthy body, but you effectively become a helpless tenant inside your own physical flesh. The elite architects of this synthetic future know perfectly well that genuine human consent is the absolute key to their success. They aggressively market this radical transition as a beautiful leap forward, a way to transcend the fragile limits of our clay. We are being heavily conditioned right now to view our natural, God-given immune systems as completely flawed and desperately needing an upgrade. By framing natural humanity as a terminal disease, they cleverly position their artificial solutions as the only logical, sane salvation. It is honestly a little bit crazy how quickly we are willing to trade our divine design for a patented corporate promise. But when the terrifying, ancient fear of mortality is weaponized against you, rationality is usually the very first thing to disappear. You see, traditional medicine was always a humble, beautiful attempt to simply help our natural clay heal its own wounds. A real doctor carefully sets a broken bone so the body can do the miraculous, organic work of actually fusing it back together. But this terrifying new wave of synthetic enhancement fundamentally rejects the idea that the human body is inherently good or beautifully made. They view you as a broken piece of biological hardware that needs a mandatory, system-wide corporate recall to function properly in society. This isn't about curing a specific ailment. It is about completely replacing your natural foundation with an entirely artificial, manageable architecture. We are blindly walking right into a permanent trap disguised as a temporary cure, entirely unaware of what we're actually giving up. When you willingly open the sacred doors of your biology to these sweeping, synthetic changes, absolutely everything about your existence shifts. You are no longer just taking a simple pill to get over a cold. You are fundamentally altering the blueprint of your soul. The grand promise of living to be 150 years old sounds incredibly appealing until you realize who holds the remote control. Gosh, it genuinely makes you wonder what happens when the people offering you this flawless health suddenly decide to change the rules. Because once they finally get unfettered, direct access to the deepest, most fundamental building blocks of who you are, the game completely changes. If they can quietly sneak past your biological defenses under the guise of healthcare, they can reach the very code that makes you human. Imagine a super arrogant junior computer programmer trying to fix a flawless masterpiece of software created by an absolute genius. This kid starts casually deleting lines of code that he thinks are just useless bugs or annoying glitches, slowing the entire system down. But what he completely fails to understand is that those specific lines were actually brilliant, complex security measures designed to protect the whole program. That exact scenario is playing out right now, but instead of computer software, these tech billionaires are aggressively hacking our human DNA. They honestly believe they can just casually edit the biological blueprint of humanity without causing a massive, catastrophic system failure. It is the ultimate form of human arrogance, looking at the divine masterpiece of our bodies and deciding they can do a much better job. You see, your DNA is not just some random, messy biological accident. It is quite literally the divine programming language of the Creator. Every single twisted strand contains an unimaginable amount of profound, carefully balanced data that took thousands of years to perfectly refine. When massive biotechnology corporations decide to play God, they grab their synthetic scissors and start cutting out the parts of us they deem imperfect. They treat our sacred genetic code like a cheap, open-source project that needs a mandatory corporate update to function in the modern world. But you simply cannot forcefully inject a cold, artificial sequence into a beautifully organic design without ripping the very soul of the creation apart. They are treating our most intimate, sacred foundation like a playground, blindly tampering with biological forces they do not genuinely understand. The sales pitch they give us is incredibly tempting, promising to easily cut out the genes responsible for terrible diseases and human suffering. It sounds like an absolute dream come true, exactly like someone offering to instantly fix all the leaks in your old, fragile roof. But the terrifying problem is that when they start forcefully editing your genetic makeup, they aren't just removing the physical illnesses. They are completely ignoring the fact that our biological flaws are deeply woven into the exact same code that gives us our fierce human empathy. Gosh, if you blindly delete the organic code that causes human vulnerability, you also accidentally delete the capacity for profound, genuine love. You might end up with a physically flawless body, but the irreplaceable, beautiful essence that actually makes you human is completely lost in the edit. Think about what happens when you take a classic, beautiful painting and let a sterile, soulless artificial intelligence improve all the brushstrokes. The AI will make the lines perfectly straight and the colors mathematically flawless, but it completely destroys the raw, emotional soul of the original artist. That is exactly what these genetic edits are doing to our bodies, stripping away the beautifully chaotic clay to leave behind a sterile shell. We are proudly letting these global corporations copy, paste, and delete the most fundamental building blocks of our existence without asking a single question. Man, it is honestly a little bit terrifying to realize we are volunteering to become the ultimate biological science experiment for the elite. We are trading the messy, glorious reality of our divine creation for a synthetic, mathematically perfect version of a human being. This aggressive hacking of our source code is not about healing the sick. It is about completely redesigning the human race from the ground up. They want to create a brand new, highly manageable human 2.0 that perfectly fits into their tightly controlled, synchronized digital utopia. By replacing our organic responses with heavily patented synthetic genetic sequences, they are slowly turning us into biological machines that simply obey commands. The messy, unpredictable nature of our clay is deeply frustrating to a system that demands absolute efficiency and perfect compliance at all times. So they quietly offer to fix our unpredictable nature, subtly erasing the rebellious spark that makes us uniquely and fiercely independent. It is a brilliant, silent takeover happening right inside our own cells, transforming our physical bodies into a completely predictable, manageable corporate asset. When you allow a corporation to aggressively rewrite the fundamental code of your existence, you are crossing a spiritual boundary that simply cannot be undone. You are no longer a sovereign natural creation. You have officially become a heavily modified product running on proprietary artificial software. The absolute danger of this divine editing is that once the organic foundation is broken, the entire structure eventually comes crashing down. You cannot just forcefully mix the cold, unfeeling nature of synthetic technology with the fragile, beautiful reality of human clay and expect a miracle. The system promises that this genetic rewrite will finally free us from all of our worldly pain and bring us ultimate peace. But when you actively try to scientifically eliminate the very concept of human suffering, you end up unleashing a much darker, unimaginable nightmare. Imagine breaking your leg in a terrible accident, and instead of a cast, a doctor just gives you a heavy, miraculous painkiller. You feel absolutely no pain whatsoever, so you decide to just get up and run a full marathon on that shattered bone. You might honestly think you are completely cured, but with every single step you take, you are grinding your own bones into absolute dust. That is exactly the terrifying illusion the elite are selling us with their aggressive synthetic war against all organic human suffering. They want to completely numb our natural pain receptors using advanced biological patches, convincing us that feeling bad is just a primitive glitch. But the sheer reality is that while the artificial numbness feels great, our spiritual bones are being completely crushed beneath the surface. We have been heavily conditioned to view physical and emotional pain as this horrible enemy that needs to be permanently eradicated. But gosh, true organic suffering is actually one of the most profound, deeply necessary teachers we have ever been given as human beings. When you touch a burning hot stove, that sharp, instantaneous pain is what beautifully forces you to pull your hand away to survive. Our emotional pain works the exact same way, acting as a crucial divine alarm system that tells us when something in our life is broken. If you artificially turn off that natural alarm using synthetic hormone regulators, you don't actually fix the fire burning down your house. You just quietly sit there, smiling in the smoke, completely oblivious to the fact that your entire world is burning to the ground. The most beautiful, irreplaceable parts of the human soul are actually forged deep inside the messy, dark fires of our personal struggles. You simply cannot develop genuine, fierce empathy for another human being if you have never experienced a single ounce of real heartache yourself. When you violently erase the capacity for deep sorrow from the human body, you automatically delete the capacity for profound love. It is a package deal, my friend, and you cannot selectively numb the bad emotions without completely flattening the good ones too. The system is desperately trying to create a perfectly happy, pacified society, but they are actually just building a massive army of smiling sociopaths. We are trading our beautiful, chaotic compassion for a cold, medically induced state of permanent robotic bliss that lacks any real substance. Think about how incredibly boring and meaningless your life would actually be if you never, ever had to overcome a single obstacle. It is the heavy, sweaty friction of facing a genuine challenge that actually builds our character and gives our daily existence real meaning. But the architects of the Human 2.0 project want to mathematically smooth out every single rough edge of your organic experience. They want to regulate your brain chemistry so perfectly that you never feel the sharp sting of failure or the heavy weight of grief. Man, it sounds like a sweet vacation, but living without that beautiful friction essentially turns your life into a flat deadline. You technically remain breathing, but the vibrant, unpredictable spark that makes you an independent creator is entirely extinguished by the algorithm. This aggressive war on organic suffering is honestly just the ultimate, most brilliant strategy for achieving absolute, undisputed global control. A population that genuinely feels the sting of injustice is a population that will eventually stand up, push back, and demand their freedom. But if you can successfully convince people to voluntarily install a biological patch that chemically prevents them from ever feeling angry or deeply upset, you win. The elite don't need to build massive physical prisons or deploy armed guards if they can just chemically lock you inside a perfectly happy mind. You will gleefully accept the absolute worst living conditions imaginable because your hacked biology will forcefully flood your brain with synthetic joy. It is the darkest form of slavery ever invented, where the slaves literally smile and thank their masters for tightening the invisible chains. When we willingly hand over the sacred right to feel our own pain, we lose the very essence of our divine, fragile clay. We become incredibly docile, biologically managed assets existing purely to serve a cold, highly synchronized system that hates unpredictability. But the terrifying reality is that this synthetic joy isn't just a free, permanent gift from benevolent tech billionaires wanting to help us out. Gosh, everything in this digital empire comes with a steep, hidden price tag that you eventually have to pay with your own flesh. Once your body completely relies on their patented artificial technology just to feel normal, you are officially locked into their ecosystem. And you really have to start wondering what exactly happens to your life when the massive corporation suddenly decides to cancel your biological subscription. Imagine finally buying that absolute dream car you have been saving up for your entire life, feeling like a total king behind the wheel. It drives perfectly, smells amazing, and feels like the ultimate symbol of your hard-earned physical freedom. But then you skip just one single monthly software payment, and the manufacturer completely kills the engine while you are driving down the highway. You suddenly realize you never actually owned the car at all. You were just renting the privilege of sitting in the driver's seat. Well, my friend, that exact same terrifying subscription model is quietly being rolled out for your own physical biology right now. The elite are fiercely pushing us into a world where your very heartbeat becomes a premium service you have to physically pay for. When you willingly let a massive corporation inject patented synthetic materials into your bloodstream, you fundamentally change your legal status as a human being. You are no longer considered a completely natural, sovereign creation of God under the law. The second that artificial nanotech flawlessly merges with your cells, a chunk of your physical body literally becomes the intellectual property of a tech billionaire. Oh, gosh, it is honestly mind-blowing to think that Wall Street investors could actually own shares of your immune system. You are walking around thinking you are safe, while your internal organs are quietly being traded as biological assets on the stock market. The system doesn't need to physically lock you in a cage if they legally hold the patent to your own lungs. They absolutely love dressing this up as the ultimate convenience, selling you a seamless monthly subscription for perfect, flawless health. You just pay a small fee, and their central servers automatically beam the latest immunity updates directly into your body while you sleep. But the terrifying catch they hide in the fine print is that true health is no longer an organic right. It is a conditional privilege. If you suddenly lose your job and miss a payment, your artificially managed immune system simply goes offline the very next day. Man, it is the most brutal, unforgiving business model ever created, turning your basic survival into an endless stream of recurring revenue. You are practically renting your own flesh, constantly terrified of the day you can no longer afford the biological rent. This biological subscription isn't just about draining your wallet, it is the ultimate, inescapable leash for absolute social compliance. Think about how fiercely you would guard your words and actions if your physical health was directly tied to your social credit score. If you dare to attend a protest or speak out against the corporate hive mind, they don't have to send the police to arrest you. They just quietly throttle your synthetic oxygen intake or pause your pain management update until you are begging on your knees for forgiveness. It is a terrifying, invisible form of total tyranny where your own body is weaponized against your rebellious spirit. You physically cannot fight back against an empire that literally controls the flow of blood through your veins. By willingly trading our fragile, beautiful clay for this patented synthetic iron, we are handing over the master keys to our existence. We are trading the messy, unpredictable freedom of being completely human for the cold, sterile safety of a corporate cage. Gosh, our ancestors fought bloody wars to secure their physical freedom, and we are just blindly giving it away for a medical upgrade. Once your biology is fully integrated into their proprietary network, there is absolutely no customer service desk you can call to get your soul back. You become entirely dependent on a massive, unfeeling machine that views you as nothing more than a biological terminal. And the absolute worst part is that you will fiercely defend the system, genuinely believing the invisible chains keeping you alive are actually saving you. The architects of this nightmare genuinely believe they have finally outsmarted the creator by perfectly merging human tissue with corporate technology. They look at their glowing data screens and arrogantly assume that the fragile organic clay has finally submitted to the strength of the synthetic iron. But they completely underestimate the ancient divine laws of nature that were set into motion thousands of years before they were even born. You see, the original blueprint of the human body has a deeply profound, fierce defense mechanism against this kind of artificial corruption. The machine can force the mixture for a little while, but eventually the pure clay is going to violently fight back. And when the human body fundamentally rejects the corporate update, the collision between those two impossible forces is going to be catastrophic. Imagine grabbing a beautiful soft ball of wet clay and pouring boiling liquid metal right on top of it to forge a statue. For a split second, it honestly looks like the ultimate masterpiece, completely tricking your eyes into thinking the two materials have perfectly bonded. But the moment you actually put any real heavy pressure on that statue, the whole thing violently shatters into a million jagged pieces. That is because iron and clay have fundamentally different natures, actively repelling each other the second they are forced into the exact same space. Man, that incredibly simple, undeniable rule of physics is exactly what the elite tech billionaires are completely ignoring right now. They arrogantly think they can just pour their cold, synthetic iron into our divine, organic human clay without causing a massive biological explosion. Thousands of years ago, the ancient prophet Daniel vividly described the final, terrifying empire of humanity as a giant statue with feet of iron mixed with clay. He specifically warned us that the elite of that final era would aggressively try to mix themselves with the seed of men using advanced technology. But the prophecy also gave us the ultimate spoiler alert. It clearly states that the iron and the clay will simply not hold together. Gosh, it is honestly mind-blowing to read those ancient words and see them perfectly describing the modern transhumanist agenda happening in our labs right now. They are desperately trying to force a permanent marriage between corporate machinery and human biology, completely convinced they can rewrite the rules of creation. But you cannot just forcefully staple a synthetic soul onto a biological body and expect the creator's original design to just quietly accept it. At the very beginning of this radical transition, the massive corporate upgrades are actually going to look like a stunning, undeniable success. People will eagerly walk out of those pristine clinics looking absolutely flawless, bragging to their friends about their brand new synthetic immune systems. It is going to feel incredibly tempting, almost like they have finally discovered the ultimate fountain of youth hidden inside a cold laboratory. You're going to see folks running faster, thinking quicker, and casually shrugging off diseases that used to terrify us just a few years ago. But that initial, shiny honeymoon phase is nothing more than a brilliant, heavily marketed illusion designed to get you to willingly sign the contract. Beneath that flawless, metallic surface, a fierce, invisible biological war is already violently raging between the natural body and the artificial invader. Your beautifully designed organic immune system is incredibly smart, and it inherently knows when a foreign, impure code has breached the sacred perimeter. It doesn't matter how heavily patented or scientifically advanced their nanotech is, the natural human body will eventually recognize it as a toxic threat. Man, you simply cannot cheat the divine architecture of your own cells, no matter how many billions of dollars you throw at the research. Eventually, the fragile organic clay is going to furiously push back against the cold, unyielding iron, trying to forcefully expel the synthetic corruption. We are going to witness a terrifying wave of unprecedented biological breakdowns, where the hacked bodies simply cannot sustain the heavy burden of the upgrade. It is like trying to run a beautifully complex classic car engine on battery acid. It might roar for a second before it completely melts down. But the absolute worst part of this impossible mixture isn't just the devastating physical toll, it is the complete and total spiritual collapse. The human soul was never, ever designed to be trapped inside a heavily monitored, artificially regulated cage of corporate hardware. Gosh, when you forcefully merge the divine breath of life with a soulless algorithmic machine, the spiritual friction becomes absolutely unbearable. People are going to walk around looking physically perfect on the outside, but their eyes will reveal a dark, screaming void of absolute emptiness inside. The organic spirit will literally suffocate under the heavy, cold grip of the iron, creating a terrifying new kind of psychological agony. They traded their messy, beautiful humanity for a flawless, synthetic shell, only to discover that the shell is actually a suffocating coffin. The architects of this digital empire are completely terrified of this ancient prophecy because they know their multi-billion-dollar project is built on a fundamental lie. They know that the beautiful, stubborn resilience of the organic human clay is the one thing their advanced algorithms can never fully conquer or predict. The system desperately wants you to feel deeply ashamed of your natural flaws, your sicknesses, and your inevitable mortality, framing them as weaknesses. But the absolute truth is that your physical fragility is actually the strongest, most unhackable shield you have against their synthetic assimilation. We have to completely change the way we look at our own biological imperfections if we want to survive this massive corporate takeover. Because when you finally realize the true divine power hidden inside your fragile human flaws, the entire illusion of their perfection instantly shatters. Think about those beautifully ugly, lumpy, organic tomatoes growing wild in your grandmother's dusty backyard. They are bruised, a little weird-looking, and they spoil in just a few days. But they taste like absolute heaven and carry the seeds for new life. Now compare that to the flawless, genetically modified tomatoes sitting under those bright, sterile supermarket lights. Sir, they look absolutely perfect, practically glowing red, and can sit on a shelf for months without rotting, but they literally taste like wet cardboard. That perfectly engineered supermarket tomato is completely sterile, meaning it cannot ever create new life, entirely trapped in its own artificial perfection. Well, my friend, that is the exact same choice the elite are forcing upon humanity right now with their synthetic biological upgrades. The system desperately wants you to look in the mirror and feel deeply ashamed of your natural, messy human flaws. They aggressively market your grey hair, your sicknesses, and your physical fragility as terrible, outdated bugs in your biological software that need a corporate patch. They look at the organic clay of your body and tell you that mortality is just a pathetic disease they can miraculously cure. But gosh, they are completely lying to you, because your physical imperfections are exactly what make you an authentic, irreplaceable masterpiece. Those wrinkles on your face are the beautiful physical receipts of a life actually lived, full of real laughter, tears, and heavy friction. Erasing those flaws doesn't make you a better human. It just turns you into a sterile, mass-produced product sitting on their digital shelf. We really need to talk about the absolute, terrifying beauty of human mortality, because it is our ultimate shield against their empire. The sheer fact that our physical bodies have a natural expiration date is actually what gives our daily choices so much profound, heavy meaning. If you knew you were going to live for 500 years with a synthetic heart, your fierce passion for life would completely evaporate. You wouldn't cherish a beautiful sunset or hold your kids as tightly, because the urgency of your fragile, temporary existence would be completely gone. Our organic mortality isn't a tragic curse. It is the divine ticking clock that forces us to love deeply and fight fiercely for what matters. By trying to offer you fake, metallic immortality, they are actually just trying to steal your urgent, messy, beautiful human drive. Staying completely organic in a world that fiercely demands you upgrade to iron is the absolute highest form of spiritual resistance. When you willingly embrace your vulnerable, breakable clay, you are boldly telling the architects of this nightmare that their sterile utopia is a scam. It takes an incredible amount of guts to let your body age naturally when everyone else is rushing to the clinic for a genetic patch. But man, there is a profound, unshakable power in knowing that your body still operates on the exact same divine source code as your ancestors. You are fiercely protecting the sacred sanctuary of your own biology, refusing to let a massive tech corporation hold the deed to your flesh. Choosing to remain beautifully imperfect is the ultimate rebellion against a cold system that demands absolute, standardized perfection. The elite honestly thought they could just program the beautiful, chaotic human spirit out of existence by replacing our cells with patented nanotech. They arrogantly built this massive, towering empire of synthetic iron, entirely convinced they had finally outsmarted the ancient design of the Creator. But just like that flawless supermarket tomato, their perfectly engineered transhuman society is completely sterile, lacking the fundamental spark to actually sustain itself. You simply cannot manufacture true human resilience in a cold laboratory, no matter how many billions of dollars you pump into the research. The messy, unpredictable clay is going to triumph because it is the only material that can actually adapt, grow, and heal organically. The iron might look incredibly strong right now, but it is ultimately brittle, completely incapable of bearing the heavy weight of a real human soul. We are standing at the absolute edge of the most terrifying, profound biological crossroads in the entire history of the human race. The needle is already prepared, and the beautiful, highly polished marketing campaigns for the Human 2.0 project are quietly rolling out right now. They are going to make you feel incredibly foolish and completely irresponsible for wanting to keep your fragile organic immune system. But you have to deeply understand that keeping your clay completely pure is the only way you survive the spiritual collapse that is coming. The battle lines have been officially drawn right across your own DNA, and you can no longer afford to just sit on the sidelines. So, as the corporate clinics open their doors and offer you the ultimate cure, you really need to know exactly how to fight back. The needle is already waiting in the sterile clinic, my friend. And the technology isn't just some distant science fiction movie. It is sitting right here, right now. They are going to use every single marketing trick in the book to make you feel incredibly foolish, irresponsible, and selfish for choosing to keep your fragile organic immune system instead of taking their flawless corporate upgrade. But you need to deeply prepare your mind right now to fiercely accept your natural mortality and organic pain as the ultimate divine gifts. Embracing the absolute fact that your physical life has a natural, beautiful end is the very thing that frees you from becoming a permanent slave to their synthetic iron. Are you genuinely willing to trade your sovereign, irreplaceable soul just for a few extra years trapped inside a cold plastic shell? I want you to really think about your own journey right now and tell me down in the comments below. What is the greatest physical pain or deep suffering you have ever endured? Your biggest flaw in the clay that actually taught you the most valuable, beautiful lesson of your entire life? Let's flood the comments and prove to their algorithm right now that our organic pain is exactly what creates true human character. If you want to stay completely awake while the rest of the world blindly lines up to become submissive, patented cyborgs, you need to stand with us. Subscribe to the Hidden Prophecy channel right now and make absolutely sure you turn on those notifications so you never miss the truth. Guard your inner temple, proudly embrace your beautiful clay, never let them alter your source code, and I will see you in the next investigation. Art.